Okay, all right, we are live. Thank you, Ashley and Brady, for joining us. Swan, we have you as well. So I will be running both production and moderating the panel along with Swan today. Today we are talking about the future, well, and past of dance in VR. And so that'll be our panel. We are live right now on the Virtual Athletics League Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So yeah, this is the very last panel of the summit, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah, we will do panels in the future, right? Like there's a few panels that we want to catch here and there as we go forward. But as for the official panel dates, we only pretty much have this one, another finals video to premiere, and then we got the TribeXR after party tonight, and that's it. So that's an Oculus Venues. Super excited for that one. So we'll have to catch you there. That is not dance, but it is DJ music. So super thrilled for that one. So I'll stop talking here for a little bit. Swan, you are, is it the right word, celebrity for VR dance in the world, right? If there can be. So I'll let you kick it off. So we also want to do intros from Ashley and Brady.
Yeah, so I'm the famous back of the head behind the Beat Saber viral video. So that kind of cemented myself in the dance VR space. I've been a dancer for quite some time, like ever since I was a little girl. I did like Chinese dance when I was in Chinese school. So that's kind of a little bit of background of me and dance. Ashley, I also know that you are a lifetime dancer. So if you'd like to start off with your intro and your love of dance, that'll be great.
Yeah, I am. I started dancing when I was 3. And then competitively when I was 7, tap, jazz, ballet, all that. And then got into flash mobs in LA for a bit, which is a real thing professionally. Did that on the side.
Nice.
And that was a lot of fun. And then started belly dancing, did that semi-professionally and on a troupe and competitively. And now I'm dancing in VR.
Perfect. And then Brady.
Yeah, so I am not a dancer at all. I've always wanted to. It's always been something that I wanted to do, but you have issues sometimes with, I don't know, being self-conscious about that. I never took any kind of classes or anything like that, so it's something that's something I've always wanted to do, and so working together on a dance-related project has been a really great way to like kind of open up that frontier and let someone like myself kind of explore what I've always wanted to explore. So that's as far as my background though, I've been a game developer for, I don't know what, 17, 18 years, something like that now. Been a lifelong gamer, and anyway, but been in VR since about 2015. Worked at Alchemy Labs for a while, working on some of the like job simulator updates and some things like that. So yeah, so that's my background.
And I guess professionally I did dance on the side, but I'm an architect turned game developer. So been a game developer for about 3 years now.
Awesome. Dope. That's great to hear. So I guess our first question is, dance has been like a bonding ritual since like the dawn of like humanity. What's been your dance ritual that inspired like your take on taking dance to the virtual space?
So I guess that question's for me. So I did dance on the side, like I said, all growing up, and I, anywhere that I would go, I kind of became known as the person most likely to dance with no music. Like I'd have silent dance parties, so didn't even really need any music. It's a lot better with a good beat, though.
So disco before it was cool.
Right. Yeah, and it's just, the way you walk, you just dance. So I was dancing competitively and on these different teams growing up. Always kind of thought, if I'm not an architect, I'll be a dancer, a professional dancer. But I mean, how do you really do that? And the only game that I really played, now that I'm in video games and the game developer, was DDR. So obviously I played like a couple Super Mario Brothers, Donkey Kong, things like that, but DDR was the one that stuck. So that's what I started doing. If I ever went to arcades, I would be on DDR machine, and then I took it home and convinced my parents to not only get like the pad that came with it, but then the hardcore plastic pad that lit up. So into it. I didn't think about that after a while when, I went to college. I was all into architecture. That's what I was doing, but I was always dancing. And then when we met and we started talking about making a game together, naturally the first thing that I wanted to do was move. So I thought about DDR, and going back to all that full circle, now I would say like my ritual is maintaining that love of dance in everything that we do. It's not only just like how you move when you wake up in the morning and you hear a good beat. It's sharing that in our own passion and professionally now making a game, with anyone that could play that with us.
I guess one thing I'm super curious about, Ashley, just thinking about what you said, is you've really had two different types of dance in your life, right? You've had the flash mob stuff and like, all of that. That sounds super cool, right? But then there's also like the electronic / game side, right? Which is almost like a different thing. And there's been a lot of things over the years. There's been DDR, there's been Dance Central, there's been Just Dance, and now there's VR, right? And that's almost been a different evolution than dance, which has been around for, since the dawn of time.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's hard to compare like traditional tango with DDR or something in VR now. I see a lot of similarities in it though. You're still moving, hopefully to music or not, and you're feeling your body express whatever you hear, whatever you see now visually too.
I think also something related to like the evolution of dance as it applies to VR and games more broadly is you've started out like with DDR, which is kind of an abstraction for dance. It's like forward, back, left, right, and so it's kind of a simplified interpretation of the concept of dance. And then you had later games like you said, Dance Central and Just Dance that came out, which attempted to be more full body and more kind of what would you say, like more complex, not just boiled down to these couple of moves. And then I think the limitation with the technology at the time there was that you had to rely on a screen, and you had like the Xbox Connect, which gave you like kind of the full body tracking thing, but it was still very kind of ambiguous whether you were actually succeeding or not. You see, rely on these like, okay, excellent or something ratings, but you didn't really know if you were exactly getting it. And sometimes the tracking was a little iffy too.
And it's kind of easy to cheat on those, right? It's like, okay, well, I'll just kind of move around, whatever.
Yeah, especially everybody knows, Just Dance maybe play with like one arm, right? Initially,
Sure.
right? I think it's gotten better over time, but initially, like the first versions, you could definitely do that, right?
Yeah.
That's the first thing you always try with any game. How do I do like the least amount
of effort and still get the highest score? Yeah.
But the other limitation with that is, of course, the way you're signaling to the player how they're supposed to move is you're watching another body move. And for someone like Ashley, who's spent her whole life training to do that, that works pretty well. In fact, we played one of those two games. I forget which one it was. I think we played both.
Yeah.
On a Connect, I think it was.
Yeah.
And we were playing that together, and she took it up like immediately because she knows how to read those. Like look at a person's body moving and move like in real time with that person's body
and translate it into my body like immediately and kind of expect certain moves.
Right. And she kicked my ass so hard on that because I was trying to keep up and I couldn't. I'm always like 3 beats behind, so like by the time my brain figures out, okay, that was their right hand here, okay, and then I'm starting to make that move and I'm already like 2 or 3 moves behind by that time. So that's one of the limitations of trying to see something on a screen. And so that's where VR comes in. And VR allows you to set, these very easily perceivable points in space, as well as timing, because you have things coming. Like in our game, you have things.
Yeah, like an audio trip, which, yeah, I think Brady, I'm a little bit more like of a dance nerd. I can't claim I'm a super good dancer, right? Because I took ballroom dance. I actually was on the dance team in high school my freshman year for ballroom dance, right?
Yeah.
But then it sort of came down to like, hey, do I want to be a ballroom dance champion or do baseball and wrestling, and I went the other path, right? So I've never claimed to be that good, but I've always loved like Just Dance. I guess the confession is that I have like 15 days of cumulative time playing Just Dance, that game, which is a lot when I look on the Xbox counter, right? But I can in no way claim to be good. I just like to get all the stars, right? And so, quick story. The first time I met the Beat Saber team was down in this basement at GDC. It was just Jan and another member from Live, Andrew Swan, like down in the corner, and they were just demoing Beat Saber by themselves. And they had like a line of 10 people, but all the air conditioning had broken, and the headsets were super sweaty. So I did not want to try Beat Saber at that time. I think, Swan, that was like 5 days after your video had gone viral, right?
No, it was like the week after. It went like viral. March 7th, it went viral, and GDC was like a week and a half later. So that was crazy. Yeah, and it's crazy to think that's like sold so many millions of copies since then. But the other part of that story that is rarely told is there was actually another demo in the corner, and he had actually built like a ballroom dance training simulator in VR. I
think I know that one. I saw that around too.
Yeah. And it's just been so innovative, right? Because I remember when very first time, like Audio Trip used to be called the Rave Runner, right? And basically what you two have done is like push the boundaries of stuff that did not exist 10 years ago. Like if you go back in time and explain, hey, there's going to be a VR dance game called Audio Trip, and somebody had to describe it, that'd be pretty mind blowing, I think, even just like what Audio Trip is, right?
Right.
And when we began working on it, the only thing that was in any way similar was Audio Shield. So when that was kind of that was the only like VR rhythm game I think that was available, so at least the only one I'd ever seen or played at the time. So because we started this quite some time ago,
3 years ago now.
Yeah, so that was kind of our idea too, is that we want to have like something that was more like dance, where you have repeating patterns and you have hand authored choreography and stuff like that. And so that was kind of the vision behind our game when we started working on it, because at the time there wasn't anything like that. When Beat Saber finally announced, and we saw that was going to be hand authored, movements and mappings. That was exciting too, to see like there are other people who had the same kind of vision for where this needed to go, rather than being everything being kind of procedurally generated.
Yeah, and I thought that was quite interesting when we started really thinking about choreography versus free dance, because you can play a song, and if somebody naturally is inclined to move, they feel creative enough to just free dance and kind of flow with the music. Depending on what style of music it is, it has natural repetitions and repeats the refrain and the bridge and things like that. Not all music has that, but if it does have something like that, you would almost expect to do a similar move that you did when you heard that before. So that's where the choreography comes in. We really wanted to use what I had grown up doing on teams of dance teams, is learning choreography that was already really thought out. It's quite different than free dance in that way. So it matches perfectly up with the music, and it's curated in a way that it allows anybody to kind of just go into this choreography, go into this template that we've already made, and not really think about it, and gets you into that sort of flow state of just feeling the joy of the dance and immediately dancing, not even really knowing you are until you are. And then you realize, oh, I'm a dancer too. I can do this.
And that's where it's great for someone like me, who's always aspired to that. It kind of gives you permission to move. And so it's not on you to like, okay, now come up with something cool, and do this. You're following kind of someone else's lead in that, to that extent. And then you can start to make it your own as well, because we've left enough room in the choreography so that you can kind of express it the way you want to. But but it's nice because it gives someone like me, permission to just go ahead and move with the music, and you're not kind of on the hook. And also with the headset on, there's a different sense of
just that immersion and everything. Yeah,
there's immersion, like self-consciousness and stuff that you
okay, it removes some of that. I think
we talked about it yesterday, right? Like going to the gym, like Carice and I we're talking about like how going to the gym for like a female is very intimidating. But when you have the VR headset on and you're doing fitness, it removes all that because there's no judgment, there's no intimidation, there's no vulnerability. Instead, it's just you and the experience.
Yeah, I recently saw one of our reviews on Quest. Somebody mentioned that. It said, you know, if you ever just felt like you want to be a super cool dancer, like someone you've always dreamed of, you can be that in Audio Trip. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, because right now you both have like a duo pack with like O-Shape, right?
Yeah.
Which is pretty rad. O-Shape is great. Like that is for those. Like, I mean, the skill level is incredible, right? As you get to the top, but that's definitely a very prescriptive movement. Like literally, you have to fit in the shape, or else you fail, right?
Yeah.
And so it's different than like Audio Trip, right? Whereas there's that, I think there's like that dancer in front of you, right? And it's part of like this whole like dance at home movement, right? I think Swan, you'd mentioned like Zoom ecstatic dance and Zoom Zumba, right?
Yeah, like that's basically where everything has gone to. It's just like everybody's at home, so everybody's doing like Zoom ecstatic dance, Zoom Zumba. But like having a VR headset, like you're getting more full body because like on camera you're like they're doing this kind of motion. So like, do I do this motion too? But then like with the VR headset and with these kind of choreographed games, it's like causing you to reach more and do more and then be in a faster beat.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting right now when everybody is at home, they're trying these new things that maybe they wouldn't have tried before, maybe because they don't have a commute anymore and they have more time or whatever reason, just trying these things out to kind of express themselves and to think, man, I always wanted to do this and now I kind of can. And it's also a way that I can sort of share and be part of this digital community that is, I think people are clinging to right now for connection.
Well, and also in the post-COVID world, you also have the issue of like gyms are closed and there are some of your exercise options. Of course, this is a fitness summit, so it's quite relevant. But you know, the fitness options are more limited than you know, a lot of people, because like I like to go to the gym and lift weights, and that's very difficult. I mean, for most of the time that COVID's been a thing, they've been all closed, so you can't do that.
Yeah, I'm missing the pull-up bar at the gym. You know, that's the sad thing. I have bands on the ground here, but they're almost as good, right, as the gym.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We found a pull-up bar here to use in the house. I miss that as well. But yeah, so that's another thing is the fitness aspect of it is something that we were kind of aware of very early on when we were making Audio Trip. And we just not too long ago started kind of experimenting with a more like cardio focus. So we have dance, but then we're also kind of like weaving that into something that's more fitness focused. That's it's where it's more about the exertion that you're doing in the movements, and that's been really interesting. And we're planning on expanding on that a lot. So
yeah, that was kind of born out of a lot of our players saying that they play Audio Trip in the morning every day for exercise, and we know that the dance, like the actual choreographies, can be really intimidating. So I kind of thought of this idea when I was on the elliptical machine and just listening to music, and I'm going at the same pace, you know, but I'm going on beat, but I'm just doing one super simple move. So we've experimented with these levels, like you said. Cardio is more really simple 4-count beats and the same sort of patterns that I just do more repetitively so that you can get even faster into that flow. You're like, I just know the move already and I'm just moving a lot.
But they're big moves, so it's like
right.
Really like.
Well, speaking of big moves, like given that standalone headsets are now a thing, like things have really modded to more free flow. Like Beat Saber announced 360 levels, Synth Riders has spin. So like, what are you experimenting in terms of like, you know, getting more people to move given the Oculus Quest is untethered?
So good question. We actually,
good questions.
As far as the spinning thing, we actually have a secret feature, if you will, that's been in the game since before it was released publicly, so it's still there. But it's
since Rave Runner days, even.
Yeah, I think it was still
okay.
When it was still
yeah.
But it's a Windows registry key that you have to know how to turn on. And if you turn that on, then it'll actually, I guess, another thing, but there might not be a way to turn it on Quest, so we may have to expose a feature for it. But basically, it's turning as well. So 90-degree turning.
We have it in that video that we released finally in January. We tried this all out last September, but there's turning in there, and basically you're just playing, and if you decide to just turn 90 degrees, the game moves. But we put it in there a long time ago, and we weren't sure about it because we're still experimenting with like not making people sick in VR as an industry. We definitely don't want that.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So it was kind of snap turning, but you turn your head and then everything shifts that direction. It's not integrated into the gameplay yet, so it's more of a elective kind of thing. But it's nice because if you have an untethered headset and you do want to get more into like expressing yourself with the song, you can turn around and move, so you're not just constantly facing one direction. So that's kind of fun. But also in that video that showed the turning, we had another experiment that we had been doing for quite some time, and we actually just released it in private beta for some testing, and will soon be coming to public beta just last night, or actually this morning.
Okay, last night. This is fresh news, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We've been working so hard on this, but we finally have foot choreography in the game.
What?
So fun.
Yeah, that's so important, right? For dancing. Right now, it's not possible in all systems, right? But there's so much innovation possible, right? Like that's probably one of the next steps for dancing VR.
Yeah, and I think full body tracking is something that it's inevitable. It's something that's coming. I mean, you already have lots of like AR based body tracking stuff. I mean, obviously the Kinect was the first thing, but now like iPhones and Androids can do it. So I think it's something that's coming pretty soon. But right now the way it works is, of course, you have Vive trackers and stuff like that, so you can have those attached to your feet, and you can play that way. So you can do full body, you can have your hands and your feet. But we've also made it so that it's possible. So like, for example, if you have just the Vive wands or index controllers, you can attach those to your foot or lower legs. You can just use some kind of a strap or something like that to attach that. And it knows, like, even if it's on just your lower leg,
interesting.
It knows where that is relative to where your foot should be when you go through the calibration in the game. So then you can play the foot-based choreography. It's just the footwork, but you can play it that way.
Kind of reminds me of a really cool game called DDR.
There's some inspiration. Yeah, for sure. That is so cool because I think I really like Dance Central. That's a great game. And as I was doing research for like the VR Fitness Summit and just thinking like, hey, what's like the universe of dance looking like in VR? Just because, like I said, I'm like a dance nerd for this sort of stuff. I spent a lot of time on YouTube, and I was watching people like on VR chat, right? And on VR chat, they'll have up to like 4 trackers, right? Like one on their hip, like 2 on your feet. And there's some people that have gone and done like full blown dance classes.
Yeah,
like you've seen that, right? In VR chat. It's wild.
No, one of our players has, I think, up to like 13 trackers that she has now.
What?
Yeah, you can put them all over your body if you really want to get tuned.
I'm not sure where all the go, but yeah, it's a lot of trackers. Ours only requires 1 for each foot. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So if you're like really great at dancing, like Ashley or Swan, like you look it's even better in VR. If you're kind of like me and you're kind of just goofy, you're doing it, or Brady, if you and me were hanging out there, maybe we just need like 3 trackers, right? So
speaking of workout, that is a huge workout. Like, it's one thing to be moving your hands and kind of be linear, stuff like that, but man, when you start moving your feet around, it's really, really a good workout, and it feels awesome.
And I've been really careful about the first choreography we're experimenting with. Like I said, I don't want people to get sick or hurt themselves, but it's at your own risk right now because this is all very experimental. And really VR is in general right now still too, right? But they're all on the floor. They're very simple moves. You step kind of like you would do in DDR or just, any dance move where you move your feet. And game objects for the feet are really similar to the hand objects. So if you know audio trip at all, you'll know kind of the mechanics of what you need to do. But I'm excited for people to try it and see where this goes.
That's amazing. Well, given that this is so nuanced, what are some of the challenges that you guys had to overcome? Like training like the trackers to actually work on your feet. Like, what's some of the hurdles that you've learned and like lessons?
Yeah, so I guess one of the main ones is just figuring out like how it is going to work. I mean, obviously you have the dedicated trackers that people can add, but not very many people have that. So we really wanted to make it accessible to a much larger audience than just people who had those accessories. So we came up with a system where we've seen some videos online where people are using Vive trackers and stuff they're strapping them using like Velcro bands or something like that to their legs.
Like,
and they're doing that for
strap.
Yeah.
Came out a couple of years ago by Rebuff, and that's what I use for Vive trackers anyway, but I've strapped them to my ankles and just stuck the wand into them. Works pretty well. Yeah,
so people have been using those for avatars and things like that. But so we thought, well, why not allow that? So what you can actually do is we had to come up with like how are you going to use the menu, but also be using your controllers as your feet. And so we came up with a system where if you put the controller down there, you calibrate it so it knows where it's supposed to be relative to your feet, and then you can pick it back up and it becomes your hand again. So when it comes above your waist, it'll turn back into a hand. And so you can use the menu and stuff like that. And then when you're ready to launch the game, you just stick it back in your little strap there. And we have a launch button on the floor now. So or if you're using the hands only mode, a little button appears on the floor. You just stomp on that, and that starts the song. So that was an interesting challenge to figure out, like, how do we make this so that people can use their hands for dual purposes.
It's been a huge challenge.
Yeah,
basically a new game within our game, and thought it'd be easier for sure. But we also realized that things had to change. You're flying through space, you're flying through the environments in our game, and we developed a way that the trackpad unfolds and creates a horizon line, so to help you keep your balance more because you're moving your feet.
Yeah, that was something that we realized early on in experimentation, was that without like a horizon and a ground plane, it's really easy to kind of feel, I don't know if you'd actually lose your balance, but you feel like you will. So you're staying like, I want to move my feet and jump around and stuff, but you don't have much confidence in doing that because your brain, I guess you don't realize it because you're always on the ground in real life, but your brain relies a lot on the ground to tell you who you are.
Orient, yeah.
So we realized we were going to have to address that. So we created some horizon lines and stuff to help stabilize the player while they're in that mode.
We put a lot of visual feedback into that. There's also, I've learned, my brother is deaf, and he's told me he has a cochlear implant, but he relies on vision. And if he stands on one leg and he closes his eyes, he falls over. So like, you really need something really stable. We have the center of the trackpad showing you where it is. We have the horizon lines. And then we also, this is very important, we had to show you where your feet are in virtual reality. So you have new Audio Trip virtual shoes.
What? That's super rad.
Shoe designer now, which is cool.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about that. I want to try it. Yeah,
it's super fun.
So yeah, there's a lot of technical challenges left remaining for like electronic dance, like VR dance, game dance, right? And obviously the Quest has been huge, just for adoption. Do you think one day there might be like, there's already hand tracking on the Quest. Do you think there might be like foot tracking on the Quest? It's kind of like a mass market, device that has brought a lot of new users in the system, right? But what do you think we'll have in 5 years in terms of headsets, or even shorter? Oculus Connect or Facebook Connect is next week, right?
Yeah.
Right.
What do you think there might be in headsets that will really enable dance in the next few years?
Well, so I've seen some third-party stuff that's already been coming out. It's not really at consumer price levels yet, but there's some third-party tracking stuff that I guess it Bluetooths in or something like that to the Quest. So it relies on like floor panels that they set up with. So it's kind of I guess it's inside out, but you have all these reference points on the floor, so it knows where. And then you have extra little trackers that you can attach to a rifle or your body or whatever, and those little cameras look and see the floor, and they see those markers on the floor, and so they orient themselves that way. But
you were talking to us about that, right? The floor panels, yeah, they look so cool.
Yeah, it's a cool solution. It looks like the prices right now are more for like location-based installations or something, but I think that kind of thing is probably on the way. Also, there's I know there's, what was it, the Razer Hydra? No, it wasn't the Razer. I don't remember what that. I think that used IMUs, but there was another company. Oh, Stems was what it was called. And it was using some kind of magnetic field system to do positional tracking, so that it doesn't rely on line of sight or anything like that. So something like that might be a solution for that kind of thing in the future. But yeah, but I think also, like I said earlier, you have smartphones that can see your body and tell where you are. So there might be some kind of interoperability with that, where because you already, like with the Quest, you have to have a smartphone app to control it. So you already have your phone. So if that phone's capable of AR, like body tracking, maybe there's some kind of low latency way that it could stream that positional information to the headset. I don't know. It's an interesting approach, maybe.
Yeah, because I think this year is obviously a bad year for arcades. Really, probably a bad year for like nightclubs, dance halls, anywhere, right? That people are like gathering together traditionally. I know, Swan, you had just done virtual Burning Man, right? And then you've done like a lot of Burning Man in the past, right? And so
it's still not the same, but look what they just gifted me.
All right, everyone has to like look closer and see this.
I know,
like right up to the camera.
Is it a major
ticket?
What?
Like, it's a collectible because they never sent it out because Burning Man got canceled. So they gifted me a ticket and a note with like a car pass. So like, I just framed it now.
That's too cool.
Yeah.
So, I guess the question is with it being such an off year, is probably the mildest and nicest way to put it for like, a nightclub. Do you think that like a VR nightclub, whether it's Audio Trip, I know there's the Wave, there's like, Tribe XRs or After Party and Oculus venues. I mean, do you think that might go mainstream or help augment some of those, losses we've seen in the real world around that?
It only the sense of presence can be conveyed a lot better. Like that's because like just working with virtual reality Burning Man, like we did Alt Space and Infinite Playa, and Infinite Playa is like the most photoreal world, but it still doesn't have that sense of connectivity. Like you randomly run into someone and you start talking for like 10 minutes and you become friends and you start doing this adventure together. It still doesn't have that because at the Wave and the Wave XR, like I went in with some friends and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm going to go check out this one thing. I'm like, okay. And they teleport off. I'm like, wait, where did you go? Like now I'm just like all alone.
Yeah, because I think the ultimate
actually.
Authentic, actually.
Yeah, I know, right? Maybe sometimes it's better to be lost in crowds because then you're not, and you can have like an avatar. You can like go and dance all you want in secret, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the way. I guess like the ultimate in VR dance is probably embodied in that scene in Ready Player One, right? Where he's in the dance club. They're like floating in the thing. Like in the book, that's like an almost even more amazing scene than in the movie, right? But the movie does like an amazing like embodiment of it. I mean, we're still pretty far away from that, right? But like one day maybe.
We are. Yeah, but maybe not in ways. I mean, so I really love this idea of obviously like I've been in a lot of flash mobs, and the cool thing about a flash mob is not how like amazing every dancer is. We had people walking by and saying, hey, what is this? Can I join? And didn't even really like know their right foot from their left, but they just joined in the back and they learned the dance really quickly. But everyone was doing the same dance at the same time. And it's powerful. It's really cool to see like this huge crowd all doing the same thing. So I don't know. I think it'd be super cool if like everybody was wearing a headset and they were maybe all in Audio Trip or doing the same game and moving to the same incentives, the same choreography all at the same time, and you're sharing that like vision together and all feeling it all at the same time.
Yeah, because that's the cool part, right? Is like it's just like a human experience. Where you're for sure.
It's that shared experience.
Yeah, and we have some kind of like social and multiplayer plans for the game, and we want to take it in a direction that hasn't really been seen before. So we can't really talk about that yet, and it's still very experimental. But
that's true. You have to save some secrets for later. You know,
right,
you already the foot tracking's already pretty big. Yeah,
right. But we're really excited for the potential of that, because I think when you start getting people interacting and not just kind of passively like, okay, you're playing and I'm playing and we'll compare our scores when we're done. But what we'd like to see is something that's more that actually involves other players, and there's a greater sense of presence and interaction with that other player. So that's, I think that kind of goes to what you're saying, though. I think that helps drive people to actually want to be in that virtual presence with other players rather than just kind of a solo experience.
Right. And it's a shared experience, but you also feed off each other. I mean, that's been super important when we made the choreography, when I've been choreographing the songs in Audio Trip, to allow for that flair between the moves, because the positions of your body really, in my opinion, aren't dance. It's how you move to those positions, and it's the flow between. That's where you find the dance. And it's like being in a dance club or just being, next to anybody who's dancing. They do a move and you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to do that.
You're going to do that one, yeah.
And
I think, go ahead.
The coolest videos are when you see like a group of people and they're all doing the same choreography, but each one of them has their unique spin on the choreography.
Because even though Audio Trip is like single player right now, it's still a pretty social experience, right? Because you have the Discord, you had the Golden Pineapple contest, right, which is pretty social. Pesky Cashew just won the tournament that was run, right? Congratulations to him.
Pesky.
Yeah, he may have won a few tournaments here and there, just a few. But there's like an active modding community. Like one person here in the chat, gentleman says, custom choreographies, right? They're asking about that, but that kind of already exists, right? Like in terms of like, mapping and doing what you want there.
It does, yeah. So we've there's actually a community created Discord for sharing songs and choreography. So that's something to check out. And there are people talking about it on our Discord if you need a link to it. So if you come to our Discord, you'll probably find some chat.
You'll make it your way through the Discords. So
right.
And the Discord link is easy too. It's audio.chat. So easy.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So from the very beginning, though, having creative tools to author your own content is something that was really important to us from the very beginning. So we built the tools for our own use, and that's actually what we used to build the game. And now those tools are available in game to anyone, and it's the same ones that we used.
From the very beginning.
Yeah. So that's
which he's been always creating more, because I'm trying to make up how you dance in VR, and I'm like, man, I wish I could do this, and he's like, all right. And then he just makes it happen.
Yeah, so we're always taking feedback from the community on features and bugs and stuff like that. But it was important when we created the tools that, as a dancer and a choreographer, from your perspective, it was important to actually be kind of embodying the movements, since rather than just kind of like mentally mapping it out and drawing it out on a computer. Actually getting in VR and moving it so you feel it in your body when you're recording it. Yeah, so you have that immediacy and that understanding in a physical way. So that was kind of important to us to do it that way, and
to be in VR, to be like as close to what you're actually going to do as possible, so you can kind of train your animal brain, get your body moving, and feel your muscle memory as you do it.
Which is so important. I remember the very first trying as one of the beta testers for Audio Trip. Like there's just some really cool moments, like when you hit the drums, right? Mm-hmm. That's pretty rad. But you talk about just like getting into VR, that experience, and it turns out there's science behind it, right? If you add in music, if you add in immersion, if you add in VR, people will exercise and do the experiences longer than they would have otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so important to us to find the fun in it and find the flow first, and then the health benefits, come afterward.
We had some pressure to kind of make it more, I guess, more of like a workout sort of application rather than
from the beginning.
A dance game. Yeah, from the very beginning. And we were adamant that no, this needs to be a fun game and it needs to feel like a dance, and that has to come first, and then the health benefits are a byproduct of that.
Sure.
And so that's what our focus has been. However, you get into it, and that's the thing. Like, since you're not playing it with the mind of like, okay, I got to do work now. You're doing it because you enjoy it, because you like the music, because you like dance, and you get. So many times I'll get to the end of a song, and I'm panting, and I don't realize that I've been like breathing really heavily the whole time until
your heart rate is like 150 beats a minute or something like that, right? And you don't even realize it.
Yeah, but you get to the end of the song, you have no idea. You just were in the zone and you're enjoying it, and then you find. And I've been pretty heavily into fitness for the last 8 to 10 years, and there's nothing like that in traditional exercise. When you're doing ellipticals or treadmills or bikes or whatever, you're intensely aware that you are pushing yourself and having to exercise, and
aware of this, or
especially on a treadmill, right? Like that's sort of the example. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And so you need music and things like that to help you kind of push through it, but you're still like you're pushing through it. And with this, like you don't even know, like you don't even realize that you're exercising. So that's what's amazing about it. I think that type of experience is a revolution in fitness, and I'm sure there's been a lot of talk about that during the whole summit, but that's what we're really excited about.
I just want to say a side note. I'm laughing to myself because when conferences were in real life, in person, we had a couple, like maybe it was more than a couple. Often people would come up and want to try the game, and maybe they'd be in a full 3-piece suit or something. And like, all right, yeah, I'll try it. And I'm like, you might want to.
A lot of hoodies and.
Yeah, like, you might
they didn't get prepared for fitness for that day.
Yeah, and then they get out of it and they're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Everywhere. It's fun. That's the point.
Swan, I think they need to take style tips. So, all right. Well, we have just a few more minutes here. Swan, I don't know if you had like another question, for Ashley and Brady. But otherwise we'll kind of do like closing. Also, it's really important to know like where people can find out about Audio Trip. Like, if this is the first time they're hearing about it, I know there's that duo pack with O-Shape, also a fantastic game that we should mention. Right. But Swan, maybe if you had like one more question, and then we just want people to know where to find you, and then just anything else you want to say as the very last panel officially of the Europe Fitness Summit.
Well, Ashley and Brady, you guys are a couple working on this game throughout the pandemic. How has that experience been for you guys?
Ooh, the real questions.
Yeah.
It's been stressful at times for sure, but we work so intensely and so hard, and have been for the last 3 years, that it's not been that much different.
Yeah.
So like even when we lived in Scotland for a while, because we had to be over there for some events, and so we kind of stayed over in Europe for a long time. So we were in Scotland for like 4 or 5 months.
Because why not? Because we worked together from home over the internet anywhere. So there's a castle, and it was cheap. So
it's really cheap, yeah. So,
nice. That sounds amazing.
So,
so it was great. But even then, like we had a castle right there, and all these amazing museums and tours and stuff we could go on. And we spent most of the time working at home. So that was it's not been that big of a change.
We work a lot. It's really crazy because you step back and you have people like, man, when you coming out with updates in the game, and it's like we really do work all the time, and it's crazy to think how long something like this takes. I think that's why, like other games that were being created at the same time, it takes years because you're just inventing how to do this, and it's all trial and error, and it's all an experiment, and so it's exciting to keep working on it, but. Yeah, for the two of us, life isn't that different. We're fortunate in that way, and we both quit our jobs to start this about 3 years ago, and we've just been working on mainly this for 3 years together.
It's kind of funny to put it that way. We're fortunate in that we're experiencing quarantine before it was cool.
Well, we know what you mean.
Yeah.
You know, hats off to all game devs and also your team, you know, just for working so hard, because making, you know, VR games is definitely the frontier of technology, right? And then you're pushing it forward just like in dance, and then you're working as hard as you can, and you're doing right by your community, right? So you're delivering these sort of revolutionary experiences. So you're taking the path less traveled, certainly, but you know, amazing amount of work that has gone into Audio Trip and these other things. So
we seriously are on our Discord all the time. So anybody who wants to come in and chat to us, like reach out, and we read everything.
Yeah, if we're not responding, we're probably asleep. And
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Out of curiosity, what percentage do you actually throw out? Like, it's trial and error, right? So what percentage do you actually throw out, and what percentage actually makes it into the game?
Ooh, we're really familiar with killing our babies.
Yeah.
I mean, we rebranded the whole thing. It used to be Rave Runner.
It used to be Rave Runner, right? Yeah.
That's hard.
I can't tell you. Oh my God, that's like the biggest thing. Like we put so much into the branding, so much into like we had 3D models of the logo, and we put so much into it. We had shirts and the whole thing, and to have to change it, and we changed it because we had kind of a soft launch in arcades, and we got a lot of feedback from players there, and Rave Runner seemed like it was more like genre specific. And so that was good for people who were predisposed to be into that kind of thing, but bad for people who maybe that wasn't their musical tastes or whatever, because they were just like, oh, that's probably not something for me. And the reality was the game was a lot broader than that anyway. It wasn't that genre specific. Like we have a pretty good range of musical styles in the game. So we made the really hard decision of having to change the name, change the branding, change everything. And that was hard. But as far as like features and stuff like that, there's a lot of stuff that we've either had to pull out or things that there's a lot more things that we're still waiting to put in because we're waiting until it's right and it feels good. And we feel like it makes sense. But like we had head targets from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So before we had barriers, we had these head targets, and so that you had your hand targets, and then you had a head target. And
because that was the idea. We started dancing to the song that he heard that inspired the game, and we're like, how do we get people to do this in VR? All we have is an HMD and hand controllers. So let's map that. But really quickly, we found that it was not super fun to try to stick your head in something.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
If that's the only thing you're doing, like obviously with something like O-Shape, you have an entire body position. That's super cool. But they're weird like nuances like that we've had to learn.
Yeah, so we figured out when it comes to your head, it makes more sense to try to avoid things because that's what you normally do with your head. You're not going around the world trying to stick your head in things. You usually
it's true. I think there's that PlayStation soccer game where you mostly use your head, right? But no other notable examples, I think. Which is that I haven't tried it, so I can't say it's awesome one way or the other, right?
Maybe it might inspire someone to actually do a game where all you use is your head.
I did see Beat Saber accordion, right, with the hand tracking. So that's a challenge out there. Somebody listening or who's going to listen to this later,
Yes, please someone make that.
Yeah.
Also, that's really interesting too. That's an interesting point that I've been learning as a newbie game dev. We get all this feedback from players, and a lot of players are coming with their feedback based on their experience from other games. So they naturally think first, like, that's what I would want. And it's interesting developing something like this and sort of curating like an art to move people a certain way. Sometimes when people want something, if you do the complete opposite times 10, they're like, oh, that's actually really cool. There's all these weird experiments you can do as a game dev.
Yeah, we had some advice from one of the guys who worked on Borderlands, and he gave us some stories from the development of Borderlands and how they took that philosophy. They kind of ran the opposite direction of what their feedback was, and turned out that actually made for a better experience. Because
interesting.
We don't always know what it is we want. We just know that we don't like what we have.
Right.
So the developer's responsibility to figure out like what is actually missing there. And that said, like we listen to everything that our players tell us, and we try to when they have a need that needs to be met, like we try to fix whatever needs to be fixed. But
we really do. I mean, for example, if this will answer your question more, Swan, the directional gems in audio trip. I was really I was really against barriers in the beginning too. Very, very beginning.
Yeah.
Brady was all for something that would actually make you like move to the side and duck and stuff.
Since we took the head targets out, we needed another way to move your head around. So.
Yeah, it's just super early on. So we had a whole powwow, and I was like, okay, if we're gonna do it, we have to do it right. And we finally eventually came to it, and I loved them. But directional gems and drums were something that I was resistant to also, and they're now one of my favorite things in the game.
One of the key parts of the game, yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't to like really like force people to do something, but it actually is really fun to smash something in VR.
Yeah, so rad. Well, I think that'll mostly wrap it up for the panel. If you haven't already, check out the Duo pack with O-Shape. I'm also checking like the Oculus Quest. Like clearly, you two are listening. I think there's something almost like 200 positive reviews with like a 4.6 rating. Super good. The first one on there is like a person who struggled with anxiety and depression, right? And they've been a little self-conscious. But they I think they said audio trip on the other hand makes it feel so natural. Never experienced anything like this before, right? And they just dance through the entire song. So that's like the #1 review on the Quest store. So if you haven't picked it up, go ahead and pick it up. And check out the winners of everything, and excited for what's coming out. So I think that's pretty much it. Catch everybody on Discord. Last panel of the VR Fitness Summit. So
yeah.
All right. Okay.
All
right. So clap for that. So thank you, Ashley, Brady. Thank you, Swan.
Sure.
And call right there. Okay. Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.